Okay, so today in class we're going to be doing a color chart. A color chart means that you take all of the colors you have in your palette and mix them against every other color in your palette to make a complete chart of every possible color you can make. So you're going to need your sketchbook. You will need a pencil of some sort. Ooh. Mine is a mechanical pencil that's very, very broken. I'm going to need a different one. And you will need, obviously, your watercolor palette, which I have right here. Your paintbrushes, just depending, you might want the bigger one or the littler one. And over on the counter, water, clearly. We're doing watercolor painting. You're going to need water. And over on the counter, there will be these little 1/2-inch tracer strips. This tracer strip will allow you to make a grid without having to measure using a ruler or to just freehand. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my little sketchbook to the first page. And it's up to me if I want to work here or if I want to flip and work here, just in case I have to go over a row. All right, so it doesn't matter. It does really makes no difference to me one way or the other, which way you go. So it's 100% your call. I think I'm going to start right here on this first page, actually. What I'm going to do is start by lining my measuring strip right up with the edge of the binding on my sketchbook. I'm going to take my pencil and I'm just going to make a line. Very easy. Now what I'm going to do is slide this strip over so I have like 1/8 of an inch. It's a very tiny strip here between the line that I just drew and now my tracer strip. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hold this in place with my finger and I'm going to trace both sides of my tracer strip. So you can kind of see how I have to move my hands out of the way. And on that first one I can see, oops, 1, I traced over my fingernail, and 2, I was crooked and very skinny. So I maybe want to go a little bit further away this time. Not a lot. I'm going to try not to trace around a fingernail. And I'm going to trace on either sides of this strip. I'm going to do this all the way across my sketchbook page. Whoop, trying to hold it still so that I don't make the lines crooked. And I'm going to end up with this like strange, like wide stripe, skinny stripe pattern as I go across my sheet. What this will allow me to do as I paint is paint from one like box or section to the next without having to wait for it to dry. Oh, sorry. Recording in my home studio. This is my cat, Izzy. She is coming to check out what I'm doing up here tonight. She likes being in the studio. Sorry about this interruption from a furry butt. I am continuing, even though you probably can't see it anymore, to draw my stripes across. I'm realizing as I go that I've been very crooked about them, and so I'm trying to straighten it out as I move to the end of the sheet here with my tracer strip. I don't know what sort of success I've actually had. So I'm going to have this awkward strip here at the end. I'm going to leave it. Not going to stress about it. Finished up perfect. So now I'm going to go the opposite direction. doing the exact same thing. I'm going to trace the strip. I am going to skip a gap that I'm going to try a little harder to keep straight this time. And I'm going to move along my sheet as I go. So double strip. I am going to do this until I have a complete grid. As the person recording the video, of course, I could have been better about having one of these to switch to, like a cooking show. Instead, you get me real time today. It will give you some idea of how long this shouldn't take you, actually, because it's not really that complicated of a process. Okay, I have my entire grid, so you can see now it's like some bizarre sort of plaid on my sheet of paper. What I'm going to do now, this square will remain empty, and I'm going to, like I said, I need to cross-reference every color with every other color on my palette. So I am going to start, I'm kind of thinking these are pretty small. I'm going to use my smaller paintbrush, which is probably a bigger paintbrush than you guys have at school. Although this does say it's an 8 and this is a 12, which I believe are actually the sizes that you guys also have. You can see the difference between some paintbrushes. The ones I've given you are much pointier than these ones I have here in my studio at home. This, just to show you, is a different brand of 12 paintbrush, and it's much pointier, which is like the one I have given you. So I might actually use that one. You can use whichever paintbrush you feel most comfortable with in your palette or in your kit that I gave you yesterday. One thing you do want to make sure that you do is this is all about kind of clean color and seeing what those clean colors do. So I have two waters. I have a water to like wash my brush with, and then a water to rinse my brush so that I can make sure that I have a lot of clean water. I also have a nasty looking rag here in my studio. You guys will have paper towels. And I'm going to start here with this yellow that you cannot see. And I'm going to paint it here. This, I do believe, is my version of Hansa yellow. It's called Azo yellow. So I use a little bit different brand of paint here at home than I do at school. And I'm also going to paint that paint here because that's how this chart is going to work. And now I'm going to mix this color paint with this color paint, which of course it's yellow mixed with yellow. I'm going to be painting the yellow again. Pretty minor. But here, this next square down, what happens is as I mix to my next color that's on my palette, which is also a yellow. You will want to try not to break the fence. It's like your golden yellow. And I'm going to paint that in both sections. So at this point, I'm not mixing anything on my palette. I'm just like taking licks off my paint pile and trying to have as like pure a version of that color as possible. So I don't want this color to be too light or too dark. I want it to be like the true version of that color. I've already used my mix waters, rinse water, and now I also need to clean off a little section of my palette. So I'm going to take a little paper towel, clean some of this off of here. Okay, so this yellow and this yellow will meet with each other here. So while I have this on my paintbrush, I'm actually going to just go ahead and paint this color in as well. because this is the most efficient way to do this chart. There's a really complicated and long way to do this chart, or there's a way to do this chart where it won't take you like 8 days. We want to do the not taking you 8 days version. So here's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to clean my brush and rinse my brush. And out here on my palette, I'm going to take this yellow and mix it with this yellow to see what new yellow they make. So I'm going to grab a little of my first yellow. I'm going to put it out here on my palette. I clean my paintbrush off and grab some of the second yellow. And you can see here I'm mixing the two of them together. By mixing the two of them together, I have made a new color of yellow. That's a combination of the two, which is what goes here. And you can see that difference. If when I paint it on there, there seems to be no difference, I have done something wrong and need to change my mix. And I'm also going to paint that here because it's the same color for both spots. So you can see now why we skipped a spot so that I don't have to wait for anything to dry. Next color on my palette is this one, which is Quin Burnt Orange, which you guys also have. It honestly doesn't matter to me what order you do these in. Like if you want to start with the black and you work away from the black, go right ahead. It doesn't make a difference what order you do these in. Oops, wrong color. Let's my paintbrush off. The Quin Burnt and the Quin Burnt are going to go here together because Quin Burnt plus Quin Burnt is also Quin Burnt. Okay. Now here, this next color is the Hansa Yellow plus the Quin Burnt. So I'm going to, or in my case, the Azo Yellow. So I'm going to move my Azo Yellow over here. I'm going to clean my paintbrush off. I'm going to take some of my Quin Burnt and I'm going to mix it in. And like I said before, if this looks just like the Quin Burnt, then I need to go back and I need to get a little bit of my Azo Yellow so that I look like I'm making a new color. If something looks funky, I need clean water. So here we go, my Quin Burnt Orange and my Azo Yellow. This color will also be right here underneath my Azo Yellow and my Quin Burnt Orange. So notice that when I mix a color, every time I'm using it twice. All right, the next color here, if I'm gonna go this way, is my Golden Yellow and my Quin Burnt. So I'm gonna grab my Golden Yellow, put it over here. I'm gonna grab some of the Quin Burnt Orange. I'm gonna mix it in. I need to mix it a little more, the golden. And that color is going to be here under the Quin Burnt and the golden. And here under the golden and the Quin Burnt. So you can see I kind of am working a square of the chart at a time. My next color is very dirty in my palette because it's the one I use all the time to make black. And it should be burnt sienna. And even now I can tell that it's not particularly cleanly burnt sienna. It's got quite a bit of blue in it. But like I said, that's what I use that color for in my palette. So this color will also go here. There's my burnt sienna plus my burnt sienna. I'm now going to grab some of my burnt sienna and put it here in its own little spot and mix it with the Azo Yellow, which would be like your Hansa Yellow. And I'm going to put those two together. Oops, maybe a little more burnt. Put those two here. And I'm also going to put them over here. So remember, this is the biggest thing to remember as you do this chart, is that every single color you make, you're going to use it 2 times. All right, so I'm going to take some more of my burnt sienna over here. couple more licks off that color pile. And you can also see I'm just making tiny little color piles because like it doesn't take that much to paint 2 tiny squares. I don't need a huge pile of anything. So here's my burnt sienna mixed with my azo yellow and my golden yellow, sorry, mixed with my burnt sienna. And then the next color, so this is a little, it's very much so math, making a grid. Now I'm going to mix my burnt orange with my burnt sienna. So I'm going to take some more of my burnt sienna. I'm going to put it on my palette. Take some of my burnt orange. I'm going to put that on my palette. And I'm looking every time for like a balance of the two. And then not so much water that they go like pastel. I want them to be full like color vibrance. Isn't spreading the way I wanted it to. Instead of like a super pastel version. And you can see because I've just been working with yellows and the oranges that is my whole color chart at this point. But I've just been going in order that my chart happens here in my palette at home because it just is easy to go around the circle. My next color is a color called Endanthering Blue, which you guys don't have, but you can request because I do have it at school. This color and this color are the 2 colors that I use most often in my own personal artwork because they make a really beautiful range of colors together, including black. So here's my blue mixed with my blue and my blue. I'm gonna clean my paintbrush off. You will want to always watch your water. And now I'm going to show you some different colors and then you guys can go ahead and get to work. So I'm going to take my Endanthering up here and mix a little pile of it. And because that color is so dark, I'm going to have to be careful about adding the yellow. So I'm going to go ahead and just make sure that it's going to go kind of gradually. And yeah, I make a beautiful green actually with that azo yellow and the Endanthering blue. It could maybe be a little more blue, but it's fine. I was more worried it would be too blue. Gonna paint it twice. Being careful not to bump. Oh, look, I bumped. It's gonna seep. It's gonna seep. So if you bump and the color's gonna seep, you can take your paintbrush, you can squeeze it dry quick, and you're gonna try to stop the seep with a squeeze dry paintbrush. So there we go. I stopped the seep just in time before it took over. So now I'm going to take my Endanthering and mix it with my golden yellow. So the same process, but like I said, this row, you're going to see some new colors now. Because before I was just mixing a bunch of oranges. Now I'm going to make a couple of greens, which should make my chart a little more interesting. So here's my green that my golden yellow and my Endanthering blue make. It's maybe a little heavy on the yellow. Great. Oh, it's a little heavy on the blue. We're going to mix those 2 together. But you can see that they make a really different green than the last 2 combination made. All right, now we're going to take my, oh, I already had a pile of the dark blue. I did 2 piles last time. Oops. Mix in some of this Quin Burnt. And these 2 colors together are very close to orange and blue. They're going to make a gray. And I can start to see they have a little too much water, which means I need more licks off my color pile. Because you can see how pale that just got. So you want to make sure you keep everything as vibrant as possible. I'm also trying not to have it be too like puddly. This process is going to continue for as many colors as I have, right? So in my palette at home, my next color is the cobalt teal that I'm going to mix with the cobalt teal. I'll make the cobalt teal. And then I have a phthalo blue. And that's going to mix with my phthalo blue. So you guys kind of get the idea. I do want to make sure that my colors are as vibrant as possible, that they don't get too light. And then I'm also being smart about mixing my colors and making sure that every time I mix a color that I'm using it both of the times that it's on the chart, because it's always on the chart twice. That way you kind of move in a wave across your paper and you're not like having to mix this color again. I have plenty of the color here. I just need to make sure that I'm using it as many times as I need to use it. Okay. So you guys can go ahead and grab one of the tracers from the counter under where it says painting 2 and painting 3. And painting 3, I'm going to have you guys do this too. It's good to practice. It's good to get back in the mode of using watercolor. This is also really a lovely way to see every single color your paints can possibly make. It's actually the only color, the only way to see that thing. So then later when you come to me and you ask, how can I make a brown? Like, you can look at your chart and then you can see, how do I make a brown? How do I make a gray? What are the ways that I make a purple out of the things that are in my palette? Have fun. I will see you guys tomorrow.